I'm Chris, and today we're going to talk about some of the safety gear you may need when operating your chainsaw. Let's do this real quick. Now, aside from your chainsaw, one of the other things you're going to want to invest in is a good pair of chainsaw chaps or chainsaw pants. These things are generally made with Kevlar fibers, and what they're going to do is if your chainsaw accidentally hits your leg, those fibers are going to bind up that chainsaw and it's going to stop that chainsaw. So effectively, it's going to save your leg, and hopefully all you end up with is a nasty bruise on your leg, and you're not having a deep gash in your leg, filleting yourself open, exposing your femoral artery and bleeding out or something like that. Now, aside from the chaps stopping the chainsaw itself, there's an inertia guard and a chain brake in your chainsaw. If you should happen to get some kickback and that thing goes flying at you, believe me, you're not going to be able to react to it. This thing's going to kick in and stop that blade right away for you. One of the safety features of a chainsaw. Aside from that, a good pair of gloves is something to have. Like always, these chains are sharp. You don't want to accidentally cut yourself. Dealing with the trees and axes and stuff like that, again, it's sharp. You want to be careful. Another thing you want to think about are some steel-toed boots. I generally always wear steel-toe boots, so this really isn't an issue for me, but it's something you might have to invest in. Now, one of the other things you want to think about, especially if you're felling a tree or doing anything where something from overhead could potentially fall on your head, it's just a hard hat. And it could be even just a simple, regular hard hat. I have something like this because I can't wear the chainsaw goggles because obviously I wear glasses. But the chainsaw goggles are just that. They're goggles with this wire mesh in front of them to really stop those chips from hitting you in the eye or something like that. But this thing works fairly nice for me. I don't really love it just because it does get kind of cumbersome and these earmuff things don't work anymore. So I have to make sure I go ahead and wear earplugs aside from this. But this is going to save my noggin, that's for sure. And now something you may not think about, but it's definitely a cheap investment, are just simple chainsaw wedges. When you're bucking a tree, you may need something like this. Even if you're cutting the tree down, you may need something like this just to help fell it over. You know, these things are inexpensive. I think these were like $5 a piece, and that's about the cheapest I could find. They're small, but you know what? They're handy. If you're felling that tree, you may need this, like I said, just to knock the tree over the rest of the way. You just pound the wedge in there. Or if you're bucking it up, you may need this depending on where that compression and tension is on that log. This way, it's not going to bind on your saw. It's not going to have that sudden stop in there, and you're not going to get that kickback. Kickback can work in a couple different ways, too. And I encourage anybody to read their chainsaw manual. It's got a nice little explanation in there on kickback. More so than I can really demonstrate. But there is a way you can test for kickback. And honestly, I haven't really tested it myself. I want to make sure the guard's off and you can actually move the blade. But they say to hold the saw like this in both hands and then let go of this hand and let that hit there right on the nose. And the inertia should kick in this control in here. So I don't know. Might damage my saw, who knows. But let's see. Yep, the blade definitely stops. So that's cool to know. Because kickback works in a way that if you hit something right on the nose of it, and this is a low kickback bar and everything like that, but right up here and right up here is your potential for kickback in the most dangerous way that I would feel, to where it's going to suddenly stop this chain from moving. And unfortunately, it's suddenly stopping. That rotation is going to go somewhere. And like I said, you watch some of the test videos on kickback, this thing could fly up and easily get you. So one of the other things you want to think about is when you're using your saw, you definitely want to wrap your thumbs around both handles. And you want to step off to the side just a little bit. So if the kickback did happen, you got a nice strong grip. But I'm telling you, if you're using a bigger saw, you're not going to have time to react and you're not going to have the muscle to react. And this thing, if it grabs in good, it could go flying back at you like crazy. That way, if you're off to the side, hopefully it's not going to get you. Kickback could happen in a couple other ways too. If you're plunge cutting through something, it could want to grab and then kick back towards you or pull the saw in. Like I said, read your manual, read up on kickback. It's more of a demonstration that I can't really perform at the moment or even think about how to perform for you guys, but it's something to think about. Watch a couple videos where they have a chainsaw cutting through a ham. It's going to make you think twice about keeping safe. Imagine that ham being your leg and it cutting all the way down. I really would not want that to happen to me. As far as other safety equipment goes, it's a good idea to have water with you. You don't want to get dehydrated. It sounds silly, but you're out there all day long doing something like this. You don't need to get dehydrated. When you get fatigued and you're using stuff like this, that's when injury occurs. And also, another silly point, but something to think about, wear some sunscreen. Bring some sunscreen with you. Again, you're out there all day long. It's really easy to get sunburned, and who wants to get sunburned when you don't need to? Like I said, it sounds silly, but it's just things to think about. One of the other things you want to have with you is a first aid kit. Even if it's a basic first aid kit. Something with a tourniquet in there or something like that, where if you did get cut or you accidentally slipped with your axe or your hatchet and you got a nice gash, you can easily close it up and at the very least have some time to get to the proper medical attention. One of the last things you want to think about in practice is work safe and use the proper cutting techniques. You really want to watch that wood and think about where the compression and tension is. That wood or that tree or that sapling, whatever you're cutting down, there could be a lot of it's under a lot of tension and there could be a lot of compression in there, and depending on what's what and where it's going, you could start cutting through something and it's going to let go and that thing could go flinging at you and hit you and knock you off and you're falling on your saw or who knows what's happening. You really want to be aware of what's going on and the physics and forces involved. It's something you may not be thinking about when you're purchasing a chainsaw, but I definitely encourage you to research it a little bit more, look at some videos, and just have a brief understanding of how this stuff could affect you and your person. I almost felt obligated to mention some of the safety equipment and the safe cutting techniques and stuff like that when doing a chainsaw video. I wanted to do chainsaw videos and a series of chainsaw videos just for the average person. I don't want to see anyone get hurt out there, especially if somebody watched a video on the internet and said, oh yeah, I can go do that, and then the tree ends up crushing them. I want to make everybody aware. Do your research first. Talk to a professional if you need. And if you do come into a situation where you're working on something, you're working on the tree and stuff like that, and you're feeling uneasy about doing it, by all means, contact a professional. Ask for help. Don't work alone. Work with somebody. There's a responsibility for me just to emphasize the safety needed to use this type of equipment. I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to click that like button. And if you want to see more videos, don't forget to subscribe. It really helps me out. Definitely check out some of my other videos, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. And if you guys found anything helpful in this video, be sure to leave a comment below. Thank you guys so much.